Here's a quick little ghost story from my childhood. So, a little backstory. When I was little, my parents would move my bedroom around depending on the season. So, in winter, my bed was by the heater. In summer, it was in the middle of a room facing the windows. I never liked my bed in the summer spot. Yeah, it gave me an eerie feeling, and I never knew why. The following event happened right at the start of summer, so he had just moved my bed. So I was about 6 or 7. I was sleeping on a hot summer night. My dad didn't put the ACs in the windows yet, so it was sweltering. That kind of heat where you just have to sleep in undies. No blankets and legs and arms spread eagle. So I was living my best starfish life. Arms above my head and having a weird ass dream about a witch tickling my pits. Next thing I know, I'm awake, but there's still a witch tickling my armpits. She was holding me down, tickling the shit out of me, and I could not get away. This is horrible. I closed my eyes and tried to push and kick her away, but after a few seconds, she vanished. I know it was real because immediately after I jumped up and ran to sleep with my parents. I still remember her wrinkly old face, and I refused to move my bed to the summer spot ever again. I come to find out, before my parents bought my house, there was an old couple who died in my room, and their bed was in my summer spot when my parents moved in. Also, the old couple used to have a special needs daughter who was in my room when she was little before she passed away. Whatever it was, I think my young mind interpreted it as something I was familiar with, a witch from a Disney movie or some shit. Sleep with those pits closed, folks. Okay, so our next story is called An Unusual Ghost Story, and in brackets it says Jinn. Hi Robert, I hope you're well and get a chance to read this. Love everything you do and all that you're about. Thank you so much. This story is actually one that my uncle had experienced when he was aged 12. Before I get into it, there's some background information you must know. In Islam, we don't believe ghosts per se. We believe in spirit-like beings we call jinn. They live their own lives just as humans do and should not interact with humans. The ones that do are harmful and dangerous. Okay, so when my uncle was 12, he used to help around his uncle's restaurant from time to time. The restaurant closed at 11 p.m. and they would begin to shut down at around 10:45, just before closing time. The workers would lock the front door, which had 2 locks, one being a padlock, and leave from the back entrance. One night at around 10:55 p.m, everyone was preparing to leave when suddenly a group of customers came in. How annoying. My uncle mentioned that he found this weird, as they would have refused to serve him so late. What's even more disturbing is my uncle can recall one of workers asking another worker if he had locked the front doors. He said he swore he did, but how did they get in? No one said anything and served them. The customers came in, ordered their food like normal, they laughed and seemed to be having a good time. However, the workers who were usually jolly and joking around on the restaurant floor and in the kitchen were silent, as if they were robots just serving people. The customers had left before 12 p.m. My uncle was baffled. He asked, "What's wrong with everyone? Why is no one speaking? Why did you let them stay so late?" Everyone started looking at each other awkwardly without saying a thing. There was one worker who really didn't have a filter when it came to speaking and spoke in a very blunt, open way without thinking. He goes, "Didn't you see their feet? They were facing the wrong way." I just teared up. My eyes just teared up. Everyone sighed in annoyance that he would tell a 12-year-old boy something that would scare him. In Islam, we believe that when jinn take human form, there's always a physical aspect that is deformed. The customers were not people. They were in fact jinn. Hope you enjoyed this and use it for your video. Kind regards, Jam. That was amazing. I'm shivering. I've got chills. Can you imagine these people coming in and their feet are backwards, but you have to serve them anyway? That actually gave me full-on chills. That was terrifying. Thank you so much. It says, "Hi Robert, before I start, I just want to say that I'm a big fan. Just a few hours ago, about 9 p.m-ish. Oh, it's that recent, okay. I was walking my dog with my best friend in a nearby neighborhood when we had a strange experience that we don't know if it's paranormal or otherwise unexplainable. We were walking down the street when we heard a loud rattling sound of someone pulling up their blinds. I didn't think much of it as I was in deep conversation, but my friend turned around to look at the source of the noise. I saw the concerned look on her face as she told me to turn around and look up at the window on the second floor of the house. She sounded frightened, so I did. When I looked, I saw a dark female figure with two braids leaning towards the glass, staring right at us. What was strange was that I could not make out a single thing on this person's face, body, or clothes. They just seemed like a solid black silhouette without any features. They also hadn't moved an inch the whole time we were staring back at it. A normal person would have moved away if they were caught staring at someone, but this figure just kept still, not moving even a tiny bit. Probably the most unsettling thing about this is that it doesn't make sense that we couldn't see any features on this person, considering that there was a street lamp nearby. It should have lit up their face. We were freaked out and decided to start walking back where we came from and go home. Even as we walked past to leave it, it was still there in the same position and spot. When we were out of its line of sight, we started running back home. Once we were a safe distance away from it, we started talking about what we had just seen. My friend told me that she had seen... Wait, what? My friend told me that she has seen the almost opposite thing that I had seen. She saw a young boy also leaning against a glass, but he had his hands against it, peering towards us. Another thing that was different was that she saw a figure in completely solid white colour and then turned to black. Oh my god, I just got chills. I just got chills. Oh, wait a minute. I just need to take a second break. Ooh. I know it sounds weird and a little bit stupid, but now we both swear that we aren't lying or making it up. Honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Was that thing just a weirdo who likes to stare at people, or was it a ghost of some sort? I'm not quite sure, but I would love to hear your thoughts on my experience. I've attached a drawing I drew of a figure I saw. Hope it helps picture it better. Also, I'm sorry if there are any mistakes. English isn't my first language, and I'm right. What? It's perfect. Oh my god. Okay, terrifying. Absolutely fucking terrifying. Here's the thing. I always say ghost children are worse than just regular ghosts because it's like, why are you dead, young man? But then to have like a completely different experience in what you saw from what your friends saw, that makes it kind of worse because it's like, was it appearing to you as something different for a reason? You know what? Be safe, but go back to that house. Please walk back past that house and tell me, keep me updated, keep me posted. It'll be interesting to go there during the day and see like who lives there. Does anyone live there? You're gonna get there and it'll be like, there's no house here at all. Oh, guys. So we have a next story. This one is called Alien Abduction, ? Ooh. So it says, this isn't a story about something I remember, but something my mum swears happened to me and my sister when we were young. When I was about 3 and my sister wasn't quite a year old, sister, mum and dad lived with my dad's parents in a farmhouse in Michigan. The 4 of us stayed in the attic, which was finished to be like a loft. It had a bathroom, a little kitchen, etc. Cute. One night after everyone was asleep, my mum woke up suddenly. She looked next to her, saw my dad sleeping, tried to wake him up, but couldn't move or speak. I slept in a bed next to my parents, and my mum saw a tall, dark figure leaning over me and rubbing my head and face. The figure eventually picked me up and left the room. My mum describes trying with everything in her to scream. The figure brought me back and laid me back in bed. The figure then went to my sister's crib and did the same thing. Leaned over her, rubbed her head, picked her up and left, and then brought her back. After the figure brought my sister back, it disappeared. After it left, my mum was able to scream and move, and was able to wake up my dad. My mum thought that maybe he had woken up to feed my sister or help me with something. My dad swore up and down that he had been asleep the whole time. The next morning, she asked everyone else in the house if they had taken us out the room. They all said no and hadn't even heard anyone walking around. Oh, I don't like this. My mum always told me that from the day I was born, she felt like I had been there before. She is a pretty devout Christian and doesn't really believe in reincarnation or anything like that, but is rather convinced that this is not my first time on Earth. As for my sister, since the night in the farmhouse, my mum has walked in on her talking to dead family members, and my sister would tell her that the man on the moon would come and visit her at night. Stop it. I think my mum experienced sleep paralysis, but she swears 25 years later, my sister and I were abducted by aliens. Thoughts? With love. You guys, your stories today. I'm actually shivering. I've got like chills. Okay, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about sleep paralysis. I don't really know much about it. I mean, I know with sleep paralysis, you can sometimes, like, a lot of people see the same thing. You can see figures and that. Can you see it interfering with other people? Like, because if it's something your mind's making up, let's say that's what it is, does it go to an extent where you see people being lifted up? I don't know. That's creepy. I love it. Amazing, amazing, amazing story. Oh, I wish I read that before. I would have done like an alien look. So, our first story today. So this is called My Imaginary Friend Letitia. Hi Robert, my name is Virginia and I live in San Diego, California. Oh, I didn't know that was in California. I'm originally from Bakersfield, California, which is a small farming city. This story is 100% true. The day I was born, my great-grandmother told my parents that I was born with special gifts. She used to heal people, make holistic medicine, and take off curses. Oh, I wish I was one of them. As a baby, my parents would say that I used to react as if someone was interacting with me, but yet no one was there. The older I got, the more weird shit will happen. I'm going to tell you one story about me, but I do want to warn you, this may scare the shit out of you, because not only is the story scary, plus every time I tell my story about my imaginary friend, I scare some people enough that they don't like to be alone with me. P.S. I'm not crazy. I believe you. Anywho, I'm 6 years old, obviously back then. It's summer break and I was playing alone in our backyard. We used to have a sandbox that my dad built for my older brother, me and my baby sister. I was playing with my Barbies as if they were on a beach. Then I heard a small voice behind me asking, "Can I play?" I turned around and saw a little girl. I asked her, "Where did you come from?" She pointed to my neighbour's house, whom were actually new to the neighbourhood. I invited her to play, but when she did play with me, she wouldn't touch any of my toys. It seemed like she enjoyed watching me play instead. My mum calls me to come in for dinner. I tell the little girl that I needed to go. Before I leave, I ask her for her name. She tells me her name is Letitia. I hope I'm saying that right. I tell her my name and I invited her to come back and play with me the very next day. She agrees. For days, Letitia would come and play with me. Still, she wouldn't touch my toys, even when I'd given her permission. Instead, she would tell me what I should do with my toys. Nothing creepy, but like have a Barbie for a beach party or make Ken take Barbie out on a date. One day, my mum asked me, "Who are you talking to?" I told her that I was playing with Letitia. She asked me, "Where did she come from?" I told my mum that she's our new neighbour. My mum just figured it was my imaginary friend. A couple of weeks go by, and Letitia comes over every day to play. Still, no one can see her but me. Sometimes she'll come inside to play, but only with my mum's permission. Finally, my little sister's 3rd birthday comes up. I asked my mum if Letitia could come to the party. My mum approves. I tell Letitia, and Letitia was excited about the invite. The party went well. Lots of games, sweets, and playing, but Letitia would always sit out. I figured she was just shy. When it came to breaking the piñata, I thought that would convince her, but no. She would run and grab the candy, but would never pick any up. She was just happy running with us. The party was over, and I say bye to Letitia, and she told me it was the most fun she ever had. A week goes by. I'm still playing with Letitia. My dad develops the birthday film. I just got chills. Before our bedtime, my parents start going through the photos and then notice something strange. One photo stood out to the rest. My mother asked my dad, "Who's that?" My dad looks and says he doesn't know, and the photo must have not been processed well. I go to see the photo that they were talking about. I tell my parents with excitement, "That's Letitia. I've just seen the picture." My mum looks pale, and my father starts talking to my mum in Spanish. My dad asks me, "The same Letitia that you play with?" I said happily, "Yep, she's my best friend." My mother sits me down and then tells me that I can't play with Letitia anymore. I ask her why, and she says, "Because Letitia needs to go to the light." I ask her, what does she mean? And she breaks it down for me in a gentle way to tell a child that this is a spirit who is no longer living. The next day, I see Letitia waiting for me in the backyard. My mum standing behind me as I walk to Letitia. I start to cry. I begin telling Letitia that I can't play with her anymore and that she needed to go to the light and to be with good people. Letitia looked sad and said, "Okay, I'll miss you." I told her I will miss her too. When I blinked, she was gone. Now 38 years old, and to this day I never saw Letitia again. I honestly didn't think she was bad, although her photo describes differently. All I know is she has never asked me to do bad things, nor did anything scary. She just seemed like a lonely child who wanted to play. So this is a picture she sent with me. Get ready to absolutely piss yourself. Description of a photo. My little sister was crying and my mum was cradling her. Oh, I can't look at that. My parents nor family could recall who this kid was, only me. My brother was standing next to me, not shown in the photo. He has spiky hair. My father said there was no one standing between my mother and himself. Don't zoom in on her eyes. That seems to freak people out the most. I'm going to zoom in on her eyes. I'm going to put it right here. I'll give you a warning. In 3, 2, 1. It's here. It's right here. I'm going to take it down now. Okay, that is terrifying. That picture literally just made my blood run cold. That is so scary. Okay, I need some more imaginary friend stories. That was absolutely incredible. Thank you for that story.